Diversity is always a good thing. However, for years have not seen any kind of a ad campaign from the brand Dove speaking to women's empowerment that does that includes a woman that looks like us.
What the f did that mean? Either way, let's get going. I already got way too many files. Whoa, I don't have enough. Whoa, first of all, we are building a machine to take on that son of a bitch Hasanabi. That's what we're doing here. But it starts with smelting some fucking iron, all right? To build the tank that we drive through his empire. That's the plan. Anyway, let's get going. On the latest episode,
statement saying feminists don't care about it.
That's loud.
You think that
just
all women are against men?
To answer your question, yeah, you're talking about women. Women are not all feminists.
Yeah.
Oh wow, we're doing UFC .
Step forward if you agree with the prompt.
All right.
If you're a woman, you should be a feminist.
Damn.
I think the concept of anti-feminism is counterintuitive as a woman. Like everyone should want equality of the sexes, you know? Everyone should want to have the same education level, the same all these things in a position and still make as much as a person who identifies as male.
In this society, we have to be feminists as women because there's certain things going on where our rights are being stripped away and black women.
Okay, so I like the prompt. Let me just say, I like the prompt in the sense that, should you be a feminist? I think there's a strong argument that you should. I don't like this person's framing that you have to be a feminist, only really because I'm not crazy about essentialization of people's identity. If you ask somebody, should you care about white people as a demographic, as a as a group or whatever, I'd probably say I don't really think you have to, and I don't even know necessarily if you should. I think there's arguments against it that are rather strong. So I'm not crazy about that answer, but we'll keep moving. It's just want to make that clear.
More likely to be murdered and attacked, and that's absolutely a feminist issue, and that's something that everyone should care about.
Everyone of any gender expression, men included, should be feminists.
I think there are different brands of feminism, if you will, that don't represent
I love this person's
what I think
hair.
all of us here feel.
If I was ever to color my hair, maybe this person. I like this person's green.
I don't think that everyone
feel like I could do a green.
has to be active as a feminist in the exact same way. Not
but I don't have
everybody
tattoos
can
or colored
march.
hair.
Not
I'm a pussy.
everybody can protest. Not everybody can really be an advocate for feminism.
At the end of the day, it's taking a look at patriarchal systems and seeing the flaws in those systems and how they negatively impact.
Focus on systems.
Everyone.
Focus on systems. Yes.
Pause on that thought. Can the disagreeers step forward?
All right, time to divide the room. Let's go.
Go, please.
What is this? Oh my God, this person. Okay, coming in hot.
One of you.
A person who their internal idea of what they
Wow, that was. I see somebody's coming into this conversation with an open mind.
Is a woman.
Terrible definition. Coming from a lesbian, that destroys the very concept of our sexual orientation. Just saying that it's an idea. Why?
Right.
Why?
Because you can't be connected and sexually attracted to somebody's brain.
Let's make sure to keep it to the prompt.
Huh? What? Wait, what? You can't be sexually attracted to somebody's brain, i.e., I don't know, their personality? What? Has she never heard that one of the most attractive traits of a romantic partner is confidence? What?
If you're a woman, you should be a feminist. Why do y'all?
Wow.
I completely disagree. You know, exactly 2 years ago, if I had done this, I probably would be a feminist.
Their name is Nike.
I started to look at, and I think they agree as
I hope that's the real name, or that might be kind of racist.
What do Black women gain from feminism? Because I remember even during Black Lives Matter, when I led 2 protests for Black women, and I counted how many white women I saw there, and the ones who were there who were just there to take pictures for social media.
Naturally.
And the Black men also hiding behind us.
Naturally.
Everyone, the whole world hides behind Black women. Enough.
Absolutely.
Same thing that's happening. Look what's happening in Iran. People on the feminist side right now are not speaking up for those Iranian women. I have a friend.
So Ariel's gonna be like, okay, so this chick is gonna be like the bitch of the episode. Okay, cool.
That is trans woman living in Iran right now. It's miserable. Nobody stands up for that poor girl.
As a woman, I particularly think I'm a humanist. For example, 2 years ago, I was a raging feminist, and I made a decision to pivot my platform, teach Black women how to sit in our feminine energy, because we've never experienced
I don't even know what that means.
Sounds like Black feminism to me, teaching women how to do that in the time that we are in now.
But we're not learning fast enough. We deserve to rest. We deserve to relax. We deserve to choose if we want to be a traditional wife. I went from law.
Okay, let's be clear. Feminism is not when you go out and have a job and work a shitty 9 to 5 and hate your employer and get sexually harassed by your boss. That's not what feminism is. Feminism is when you have the choice, the open ability, and a social structure that allows you to do all of those things, to go and make your own money, participate as a autonomous person out in the world, which, by the way, working 9 to 5s fucking sucks. And participating like everybody else. Or if you want to be a trad wife, guess what? You've always had the freedom to be a trad wife. You've always had that freedom. The freedom we're talking about is for people who want more autonomy. There was a time when women couldn't open credit cards in their own names without their husbands. And then guess what? They never got to get divorces. They never were able to save up money. So if they were ever in an abusive situation with those husbands, they had no way of getting out of that. So, it's kind of important, some of these things.
To being a CEO to now I just want to be a housewife. And every time I say that, I get so much hate. Like, women work so hard to get to this point. Why do you want to be a housewife? Because
that's what you
my
want.
Choice.
You're allowed
that's
to be.
What you want. That's the whole
You can totally do that.
Exactly. Why can't I choose?
Yeah, like, what are you talking?
That's the whole point of feminism.
It's not an either
why
or.
can't I choose? What are you missing in America to claim that you are oppressed as a woman?
Well, we just had our rights to our own uteruses stripped away.
Well, the right to murder your own baby, though. I mean,
it's not a baby. It's a clump of cells.
I mean, we all are clump of cells right here.
I think everybody's going to agree.
You are not your brain might be a clump of cells, my darling, but no, you get the fuck out of here. Oh, we're all a clump of cells. Like, no, you're not. The distinction between a clump of cells and a functioning human being, wildly different. I don't know what that fucking comment come from.
I disagree.
Yeah, that's a whole.
I don't know if that's another topic. That's another topic.
I had a very, very hard time.
Yeah, but back then, if you were
to that.
Yeah, but back then, if you were trad wife, you weren't helping the cause. I mean, you weren't, but also you weren't part of it. There isn't. Now, let me be clear. Is there a toxic element to feminism? Absolutely. There's a toxic element to everything. There's a toxic element of masculinity. There's a toxic element of femininity. There's a toxic element in gay and in LGBT circles. There are toxic elements in all of these things. This isn't really anything new. But the creed of feminism and the goal of feminism, regardless of what color or what what's the word I'm looking for, shade that you're representing or the one that you're pushing, generally boils down to an equal level of rights and equal ability to participate in society, which is rather overarching between all of the types of. Now, that's something, you have rad femmes who are a lot more aggressive and really, really dislike men, and are actively very anti-men, very misandrous and everything else, which I don't think is positive, but it's part of their feminism. Feminism is not just one thing, but it's also not I feel like everyone, there's I feel like the anti-feminist people are coming in with especially a homegirl who came in like really fucking spicy. Like they already have the version that they don't like, and I fear that she's not ever going to address the feminism that the people in front of her are representing, because you can always just kind of ignore the person who's like, actually, no, the feminism that a lot of people subscribe to has nothing to do with you not being able to be a trad wife. Nobody cares. If you want to be a trad wife, be a trad wife. I don't give a shit. But you need to be able to have the freedom to choose that. There's no, like, it can't be a meaningful choice if you can't choose to be a trad wife. Anyway.
Prompt, because my whole life, I did consider myself a feminist. Seeing how this modern wave of feminism has now turned into something very different than equal rights. We all want equal, of course, we want equal rights. We want equality as women, of course.
But how do you have equal rights when you can't define the word woman on the far left?
Oh my God, this person.
Had a Women's Day recently, and the Women's Day was celebrated by 2 trans women who still had their male parts. I mean...
Okay, so these are TERFs. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm assuming everyone on the other side is just a TERF.
You're pushing women out of womanhood.
I'm sure we're going to have discussions about whether or not a trans woman is a woman, but I actually want to go back to how we feel.
I'm really hoping this person with green hair.
Our ideal of feminism,
because it seems
probably not the way that you four think of feminism. I'm willing to bet.
I agree with that. I think that's why people like me stepped away from that. Not because we're not women empowered or believe in women empowerment.
It's because we are women empowered.
It's because we believe women empowerment means something different than what you guys believe in.
Yes, yours is a lot more, what's the word?
There's no
restrictive.
wrong reason to get an abortion.
Damn, she had to think about that. That was kind of a tricky question, though. Okay. Like, wait a minute. There's no wrong reason. Why do they do this? I would have been standing there like, what the fuck are they trying to say? Anyway.
Making a health decision between you and a medical professional.
Coomer Police, what do you think? What do you think she's right about?
Your body, your future. It is always the right decision.
I would never stand between anyone with a uterus from making a decision about their body.
No, yeah, they're like, you can do it. You can have this health. You can have this health care if you are a victim of incest or a victim of rape. It's like you should be able to have access to that. What if you want it? You know, it's the same as going into the doctor and getting a routine check. If there's something for your body that you think will, you know, not just benefit you, but help you live and also help you sustain an actual good life for your child, then that's what you need to do.
And financial is a huge thing too.
It is a huge thing.
It's an extremely huge financial.
It's hard to have a conversation about women when the definition of women is being changed. So I can understand that. Okay, so I can understand where you're coming from in terms of like, hey, like, I was under the understanding that the conception of women were, adult human females, right? That's kind of the, I guess the long-standing adopted definition, I guess one would give for women, right? Unfortunately, and this is the part where I think open-mindedness needs to be, this is where you practice open-mindedness. That understanding has changed. Now, it's changed in a very specific kind of way. If we're talking about women, right? What is a woman? It's like it's the documentary and all the rest of that stuff, right? Most on the left would define woman as somebody who identifies with the social characteristics and social expectations of females, right? So that's kind of the way that the left has approached that, because of the much more recent understanding of trans identity. Trans identity mostly revolves around the understanding that your gender, meaning the social role that you are going to play, does not always coincide with your reproductive parts. A big pushback to, I think, an element to the adult human female or whatever, or I think this woman said it earlier, where she was like, people who have uteruses, right? There is a lot of pushback to like people who say like, well, how can you be a woman if you have a penis, let's say, right? So you ask yourself like, wait, like if you got a dick, like how are you like a woman if you have like a dick, right? To which the question becomes, okay, so if we want to excise, if it like is having a penis, what's the word? Disqualifying to play the role of a woman in society. Now, you might say, well, the reason for that is because the penis is the like male reproductive organ and there are like, you know, testes and all the rest of this stuff that like make that mechanical part of the human body function, right? But that's not what, like, when we think of women, like nobody's thinking like, no woman is defined by their reproductive parts. I think that's a really reductive way to look at people, to surmise people just simply based on their reproductive bits, their bits down there. Like at least to me and a lot of people on the left, it's kind of weird because it's like, well, I mean, what's the what's the big deal here? I mean, we're talking about a social role. Obviously, nobody is saying that like a born at male a trans woman has the same reproductive capabilities, but in no way is reproduction the thing that defines women, because there are millions of women who are incapable of having children. My mother being one of them. She was unable to have children and I was adopted. I was the solution to that, because she had an inability to fulfill that, I guess, societal genetic role, right? Or yeah, societal role, I should say, right? But that doesn't make her less of a woman. She has every other element in terms of being a woman. So it's all about, at least in my opinion, it's all about thresholds. Where are the thresholds that we're talking about? If you have as far as you can tell, you know, a perfectly passing trans woman who, you know, maybe hasn't had bottom surgery yet, right? But, you know, they're on estrogen, you know, the actual mechanics of their penis and everything else doesn't function the same way it would because of the changes in hormones and everything else. What we're really talking about at that point is basically just reshaping the body to match what the internal hormones have reprogrammed it to develop into, right? So it always comes down, you know, to like what makes a woman? Is it just her vagina? Is that it? I don't think it is. You know, how many people have definitions of women that is like caretakers, you know, like, and then other people will be like people with long hair with big old titties. Like, there are so many, there's a vast list of elements that you would attribute to woman that have, and like, you know, that what, like, and what percentage of those, or is there like one that's completely disqualifying? You can be 90% a woman, but if you have a dick, then that's like, oh, nope, that's out. Like to me, from a societal level, and especially if that's something that we can change with, you know, surgery and science and everything else, then, you know, it just kind of becomes an issue that we can fix. And really, there's not like I don't see any utility for walking down the street and like, you don't know what bottom bits anybody has, and you're probably not like, that's not the way you identify women on the street. It's not the way you identify women who are like moms with their kids at the playground. So it's all about like kind of the threshold thing. But Yeah, I think we were going to disagree in this aspect, so you can continue with the video. That still lingers in our society. It does still linger. Okay, so like for the longest time it was no. Yeah, I understand. Like I get that it's like, yes, the trans identity as it's conceptually understood now is not I think hasn't taken hold in a certain percentage of the population, which is fine. But like that kind of education like needs to continue. A fact of history.
Financial responsibility to have a kid, and some people just don't have that means.
Like black people were property at some point.
I'm definitely pro-choice,
and then they
I'm
weren't.
probably the only anti-feminist that's pro-choice.
They weren't men, they weren't women. They were property. They were tools. You know, and you know, even still to this day, there's a lingering, I think, belief that they should have stayed property from some people, specifically in the South. So like, you know, like. It's all going to be a working process, but
abortion is actually very common. It's like 78% of Americans.
Okay, so yeah,
there's actually many people who are in your category. To me,
sure.
It makes sense in certain circumstances. I don't think people should be using abortion as a form of birth control. I think, to me, abortion's
that's what you have birth control for.
The issue we need to be talking about right now. I feel like we need to be talking about how to properly educate people, no matter what their status is, no matter what their sexual orientation, whatever. And we need to go from there.
Oh, that scared me for a minute. I wasn't sure what that like big
Well, I think I have a very interesting perspective on this because my mother opened the first Planned Parenthood in our state, and she is very pro-abortion outwardly, but inwardly in our home, we weren't allowed to do it. And so growing up at that dichotomy really, I think, messed me up a lot because I was like, okay, which one is the truth?
There are wrong reasons to get an abortion. A wrong reason to get an abortion is if you are going through your pregnancy and all of a sudden you change your mind. If you are irresponsible and all of a sudden finding yourself scared of motherhood.
So what, eat shit and be a mother? Like, is that societally helpful? Like, don't you think that's damaging to have parents bring kids to term that they didn't want and aren't ready for? Like, I don't see what the trade-off is.
When people say that women are getting abortions because they just don't want to be pregnant anymore, they're not actually understanding the way that an abortion works. Most of the time they're talking about late-term abortions, and what a lot of people don't realize is when you have that kind of abortion, you have to give birth to the fetus. There's no going back. You're literally giving birth to a body. It's never just a, whoop, I don't feel like being pregnant anymore. Guess these last 8 months I just wasted everything. No, no one's doing that.
Raising children is the most blessed gift. And
Okay, so also, I want to also ask, what part of being a woman do you think this woman attributes to being a mother? Because there's a lot of people who like, part of being a woman is like bearing and raising children. That's part of their definition of being a woman, which I don't think is a fair definition. I don't think it's really that applicable, but also that's not everybody wants to participate in that. And the women who don't want to bear and raise children, I don't think are less of women than the women who do.
I speak as someone who, when I found out that I was expecting for the first time, I kid you not, I was terrified.
But you were prepared.
No. I was not necessarily prepared.
Not necessarily.
And I was very much caught off guard. And I was terrified because I had an incredible career happening for me. On the upswing.
Finances.
I had,
cool.
Let me finish. I had such a dramatic, fearful reaction to becoming a mother because of what our society has been telling me throughout my adolescence and my early 20s, is that once you become a mother, it's all over and it ends. And that is a very, very deeply rooted problem in our society that I do think we need to address.
That sentiment is the patriarchy in action, though.
What is the patriarchy?
What isn't the patriarchy? I feel like that's the better question.
It's a systemic...
I already like this person's answer.
Ideal that favors masculinity, men,
male power, male dominance.
I didn't love that
answer.
The
traditional idea of what a man is.
The patriarchy is a system that oppresses not just women, but everyone.
It's not patriarchy because the people who scared me so much were the women mom bloggers.
Just because it's coming from a woman.
Coming from women does not mean that it's not from the patriarchy.
These were the women, and
the patriarchy is much like capitalism in that it's ubiquitous in its influence and spread rather wide across, quite frankly, the world. But we'll talk specifically in the U.S. It's a rather ubiquitous hierarchical structure that has waned in certain aspects. In terms of like workplace patriarchy, you see less of it, I think, these days than, I mean, obviously you do now, but patriarchy overall is not great. It also locks men into damaging social roles as well. Everyone always thinks like the patriarchy always favors men, but if you go into like men's rights, like if you go to MRA communities, what are they always complaining about? Men don't get the kids, men always get sent off to war, men have to do all the work, men have to do all of this. It's a system that not just keeps women as a secondary player in any kind of, whether it be employment or familial structure, it also keeps like places men at the top of that at like no matter what, which at the end of the day, like not all guys want to be filling that role all the fucking time. And people should be able to freely choose. Like if you want to be the breadwinner, if you want to do all that shit, by all means. No problem with that at all. Same with if you want to be a trad wife. But the system that's built is built in place to incentivize and promote those values and that structure. And that is not positive, in my opinion, for either gender, men or women.
Speak with really strong conviction about this. The women who are publicly outward speaking to other women through blogs, through social media, talking about my life is so hard because of my kids. Oh, my kids are jerks. Oh, life is this. I have no money.
They shouldn't have had kids.
Those messages are very, very pervasive, and they're very dangerous, and they're toxic
but
to
they're
women.
Also real parts of motherhood. We just discussed how motherhood...
How many of you are mothers here?
I am not a mother, but...
Okay, I am a mother of 12 years. And I know
I was scared.
all
She was
of
about
the
to say
very,
12
very
kids.
hard parts of motherhood. And I just wish, as someone who has actually, as the only person here who has gone through this motherhood experience.
I also hate this whole like, but I'm a mother, therefore you can't argue with any of my experiences. Where it's like, well, that's not really how it works. Like, just because you're a mother does not make you a representative, nor an expert on child rearing or mothering. Like,
I, from the bottom of my heart, wish that the positive aspects of motherhood supersede all of the hard stuff.
Let's get back on prompt. Again, there's no wrong reason to get an abortion.
We're like all over the fucking place.
There's been so many points I want to talk about.
I want to talk about Candace, maybe. Candace, what she says about...
I don't even know what she said.
Oh,
just let her talk.
Sorry.
So my parents actually had me when they were 19, and thank God they didn't abort me. They were not ready. They were in a terrible situation, and having me at 19 made them grow up and mature.
This is unrelated, but that's a nice sweater.
And become adults and not continue being on a bad path.
The turtleneck,
so I'm thankful
too, actually.
for that. And a lot of, something that you said it's society's, I think it was about society's pushing this idea, like demonizing motherhood, and you said that's part of the patriarchy. Well, I would ask you this, don't you think men benefit from women getting abortions because they no longer have to deal with it? They can just sleep around, and if, God forbid, a woman gets pregnant, oh, she wants to abort it. Cool, now I'm off the hook.
What is the patriarchy?
Really? Okay. I feel like everybody benefits from not having children that they're not ready for, men and women. Okay.
I don't even know what that men oppress us and
that everything that goes wrong, that men are to blame, and I don't think that's a healthy way of being.
Very happy to live under this so-called patriarchy.
This word patriarchy, it does not make any sense to me. Women are not oppressed in America.
Patriarchal society doesn't bother me. Like Marilyn Monroe says, as long as
we're moving on.
Be all of a woman.
We're just moving on.
I am not bothered.
The feminist movement is inherently racist.
The feminist movement does not benefit POC.
True.
In any shape or form. It especially does not benefit Black women.
Especially second-wave feminism.
The more you are used, I call us Black women.
We also have to remember there are like different phases of feminism.
If we're talking
like,
historically,
there are
if
very different stages of
feminist
feminism.
movements started, it was an exclusionary movement.
Absolutely.
If we go back to the suffragettes or even further, Black women were not allowed to join in that effort because they really weren't fighting for Black women.
Until we were used as bullets.
Right.
If we're not being used, we can't be part of the movement.
They did use Black women. They used Black women's efforts because most of the most achievements that feminism, you're right, like most of the achievements of feminism have been done by Black women, and white women have stepped in and taken the credit. For like people who do identify as feminists, especially those of us who are white, I think the most important thing for us to do is to sit down, shut up, and listen to Black women.
I would say just like include people. I never like the sit down and shut up, don't like, I never like that. It always just feels like, I don't want to say pandering, but it always just feels like self-mutilation for like no reason. Like, just include Black women in the movement. That's really all you have to do. Is like, you don't need to do all this performative bullshit of like fucking like lighting yourself on fire. Like, chill the fuck out. Just include them in the movement, for fuck's sake.
As a Black woman who identifies as a feminist, my work centers Black women. So to say that, you know, of course, like, white women were able to vote before Black women. Like, the feminist movement was inherently racist, but how I live my life and the way that the community that I've built around myself of Black feminists, we see.
But why label it feminism?
Well, you can label it whatever you want, but
helping other Black women.
I affirm you, and I see that the semantics makes you uncomfortable because feminism was racist.
Yeah,
but
it is still racist.
But you're not racist. So if you are not racist and you have issues that you want to be working towards for Black women, that doesn't mean that you're inherently being racist or helping white women. I think feminism exists on a spectrum.
We're talking about semantics. We're talking about terms. They evolve and they change. Ideology.
Yeah, she's right. That's mostly a semantic game. You know, that's like the thing of like, oh, well, you know, like feminists from back in the day were racist. Yes, they were. Absolutely. It's not now because Black women are much more included these days. Was it before? Yeah. Is it different now? Yeah. The movement evolves same like every other movement. Like every social justice movement has to start somewhere. And usually it starts in some form is exclusionary. And eventually, as it progresses, as it builds, it becomes more inclusive of, stripes of like new people who should have been always included. There was always like, it's just evolution. I don't know, like I get it. Like, yeah, okay.
Ideologies change. Right. And I think that feminism is evolving and changing. And I think it's because of the work of people like you. And so that's why I can confidently say.
It's evolving. It's not evolving. I think it's devolving. You know, I think third wave feminism.
Third wave.
By all accounts, I see, you know, again, have a very powerful Black mother, a very feminist Black mother. And I mean, no one wants to say they did life wrong, but she's saying, man, I wish I could have taken care of myself. I wish I could have done this. I love how you get your hair done and you go get makeup done and you're so, and she says it, you know, like she wasn't there in the household to raise us, like back to motherhood, because she was gone fighting every single day for women's rights to come home and be exhausted by the time she gets home. And we never got to have a mother, you know.
When I scroll my own social media feed, I rarely see a powerful woman highlighted who is not an ethnicity.
Yes.
No.
Wait.
It's true.
They're using them as pawns. It feels like.
Wait a minute.
Fighting.
I like spaced out reading your comment.
For women's rights.
Hit me with that again, Jill.
Is not rarely see a powerful woman highlighted who is not an ethnicity.
Not an ethnicity. Is that possible? Basically everybody is one or like everybody's an ethnicity of some form. But okay. I'm okay.
No. It's true.
They're using them as pawns. It feels
using them as pawns.
Oh, 100%.
A lot of big brands are now hopping on this, modern feminism bandwagon, which I don't
okay,
agree
she's doing
with what
this.
modern
Okay,
feminism
performative
a lot of brands
feminism.
now,
Yeah.
And I'll just say, a big brand that comes to mind is Dove. Diversity is always a good thing. However, I, for years, have not seen any kind of a ad campaign from the brand Dove speaking to women's empowerment that does that includes a woman that looks like us.
What the fuck did that mean? What the is she wait. Is she arguing that Dove doesn't make commercials with white women anymore? I hope that's not what she's saying, but that's
modern feminism today is lacking, I think, is genuine respect for diversity of opinion for all women.
If you felt modern day feminism didn't hijack all points of view of women, that you would still identify as a feminist?
Yes.
I think she was pointing at the. I don't. Okay, let's get our what's the word where you
that looks like.
I don't know. She's looking at these two.
Us.
Like she's leaning out. She's like leaning out. Like homegirl's like here, and she's like leaning out to be like us right here, not us right here. Oh boy.
What modern feminism today is lacking, I think, is genuine respect for diversity of opinion for all women.
If you felt modern day feminism didn't hijack all points of view of women, that you would still identify as a feminist?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the entire time everyone was talking, all I was thinking was, wow, I'm so sick of all these labels and all these different intersections. And these days there's more intersections than genders. And I'm just like, all these.
What's funny is she's actively describing like second wave, like very exclusionary, very, I think, a reductive vision of what feminism is. This is like a feminism that like isn't inclusive of men, is only really for like a very specific like type of woman. Like this is
like
rather
politics groups,
like
we're just pitting each other against each other. I like
it's rather reductive. I find
getting brought up. I know it was brought up in the prompt for this one, but in every single other one,
because it's kind of an issue.
Think about this. I don't even think that I'm not being represented even in ads. I don't care. It just does. I don't. Sure.
Well, that's nice.
I'm sure you don't.
When you're not, you
Thank
don't
you for
care.
letting me know that. You always feminists always know best for me. That's what I've noticed. It's a trend. But.
I mean, I'm just pointing out that you are a privileged white woman who has not had.
God damn, just fucking laying it, fucking dropping the elbow.
Had to see the lack of diversity. When we step into a room filled with other white people, we don't notice that it's other white people. But when women of color have stepped into rooms and they see that it's just a bunch of other white people.
Also, intersectionality is not just about diversity, and it's certainly not about diversity in ad campaigns. It's about how poor women can't afford to drive to another state to get an abortion, but rich women can.
This lady's fucking mauling right now. She is fucking like staring a hole through the back of through the front of this lady's forehead. Jesus Christ!
It costs more money to drive to get an abortion than it would take to raise that kid.
Well,
Just saying.
but that's the
Wait, does she think that it costs? Wait a minute. No fucking way.
not about diversity.
My dyslexia had to have kicked
it's
in.
It's about how poor
Hit me
women
with that
can
one more
afford
time.
to drive to another state to get an abortion, but rich women can.
It costs more money to drive to get an abortion than it would take to raise that kid?
Well,
Just saying.
but that's the thing, right?
Right.
Like,
It
if you
just-
don't
that
have the
doesn't make
money
sense
to
to me.
drive to get an abortion, how are you going to have the money to raise that child? Why
Pause
should
there.
you be
Let's
forced
reset,
into motherhood?
reset.
Does this lady think getting an abortion costs more than raising a child? Do you know how much college costs? You know how much diapers cost? But okay. Like, the idea that you think, like, oh boy, wow, Jesus. I can tell this lady wants to be a trad wife because she's never looked at the fucking finances before. You've got to be in fucking sane to think that getting an abortion is even comparable in terms of price to raising a child. Something that I think like is somewhere in like the like hundreds of thousands, if not low millions, in terms of money spent over their entire lifetime, at least until they're 18, assuming we're not talking about college. Like, Jesus.
Feminists don't appreciate all that men do for society.
Will anybody? Oh boy. Okay.
I mean, I've got a lot to say about this. Feminists just demonize men. They hate men. All men are trash. They say they hate men while simultaneously trying to become men. They hate them for having power and the patriarchy, so they're trying to overtake it. But a lot of women will talk about rape culture. But guess what? Guess who's going to protect you from bad people? A man. Women
Have you ever heard of female police officers? They also do that. They are also not men, fun fact. A gun. Fuck a man, just buy a gun. God, that's funny.
we need men.
It's as simple as that. It's a God-given right for men to exist the way they were assigned to exist.
Guns are created by men. Fucking feminists owned. Yep.
We need men. It's very simple. We need men to procreate. We need men to provide. We need men to produce. We need men to go to war and die. We need men.
Savage.
It's so bad now.
Damn, she just went out there and fucking said it
all the time. I go on dates with men.
Bro, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, imagine you're a guy and she's like, I need you to go fight wars and fucking die. Holy shit.
And they're like, am I allowed to open the door? Can I not open the door? Can I touch it? Can I pull the chair out? What can I do? And they're shaking, they're sweating. And you're just like, be yourself. Just, it's okay. You like, they're so afraid of doing anything wrong. So much so they're now the most lonely demographic in the world, right?
Yeah,
like
if you told me like, hey, you pulled that chair out for this woman, here's your M4A1, get your ass to Ukraine. I might think twice about pulling out a chair myself.
I'm not.
You might catch me being like, get your own damn door.
Especially happening in schools right now.
Fuck.
There is a trend where they are raising
schools.
up the girls. Girl power, girl boss, girl this. Run like a girl in the best way possible.
Right.
Now, it's dangerous. It is dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Because, yes, we want to
running like women, inherently inferior is dangerous. Absolutely.
Women, that's the right thing to do so that men and women do maintain equality. But at the same time, by raising the girls, we are forgetting about our boys.
Yeah, they want to solve inequality by
stupid.
Enforcing more inequality. And if women were equal to men, then.
So this is the problem also. There's no version of like. The problem is there's no advocacy that they seem to like that they can like appreciate that is, what's the word I'm looking for, that is positive of women, that isn't inherently negative of men. This is unironically patriarchal thinking. Only in a patriarchy where men necessarily must be at the top by definition would you see women's equality as a degradation of your rights and of your place. Like, this is like when people do, like, when people say, when you've been used to privilege, equality feels like oppression, right? Like, that is what this is reinforcing. And that is this mindset in action. Like, you can't have women can't do better unless men do worse. That is how the patriarchy works. And it's how the patriarchy as a system incentivizes men to buy into it, to advocate for their domination in terms of societal structure in the hierarchy.
And why do the girls need to be raised up so much? Why? The only men that feminists like are men dressing as women and dominating their sports and just really reversing what the other waves of feminism fought to do.
Do you think she can name more than like one instance
women, because guess what? You're not going to beat them. Have fun.
Of what's it called?
I've never even.
You know, that's kind of crazy because we just watched, like, I remember, I think last stream there was like a trans like figure skater, and they did pretty poorly compared to the traditional women in the competition. There's no evidence that men will by definition always beat women in any of these sports, especially after their bodies have been ravaged by estrogen.
Felt unequal. So I don't even know what the problem is. I feel like a lot of people just want to have a reason to be upset and outraged. I also just don't identify with all these identity politics groups. I think they're being pit against each
having
other,
so little problems that like you see people
race, class, gender,
pointing out
everything,
issues in society and you're just like, you're just complaining.
I look at people as individuals.
All right, on that note, let's have the disagreeers step forward.
There's a difference between not appreciating men and pointing out the inequities that
what is it? Feminists don't appreciate all that men do for society.
Systemically put in place to favor men, especially white men, white straight men. There's a difference between hating men and pointing out that there are inequities.
I want to talk about this concept of protection. We're talking about good men who are protectors. Who are they protecting us from?
Bad men.
Bad men, exactly.
Yeah. Or bad women, bad anybody.
I could drive a car.
It's funny you didn't. It's funny you didn't ask that. It's funny that you didn't say that first, ma'am. It's hilarious that you just immediately went to bad men. It's almost like it's like a knee-jerk systemically reinforced reaction.
Rhetorical. I guess
no, I understand the point you were trying to make. That's why I said what you wanted me to say.
But I'm going to finish. So then who benefits from men's bad behavior? Good men as well, right? They get to be positioned as the good guys.
Good apples.
They're the good apples. Mm-hmm. And that is predicated on the bad behavior of men.
No, they benefit from being a good person and protecting women. Who cares? We should not be praising people based off comparing them to bad people.
But I don't benefit from being a good girl.
You're a good feminist, right? I'm sure people love what you have to say as a feminist. Other feminists agree with it and are like,
that's not what she said.
Girl
there
boss,
are
they do.
good people on earth and bad people on earth. We're always going to have that. That will never change. It's in every animal kingdom. So we need the good man to protect us from the bad man.
Is it? Are there bad lions and good lions? Are there good elephants and bad elephants? Is that really the way that works? Because the concept of something being bad or negative from like a societal standpoint, like we are the only species that really has that element. Like that's not like a thing in nature. Like, because nature has like an ecosystem, but like there really isn't like, there's not the nice tiger, there's not the nice lion. They just do they perform the function that they're meant to on the earth in the ecosystem. Like,
to go off of what you said, because you said when women are sexually assaulted, they turn to another man to protect them. I work as a sexual assault and domestic violence counselor. I work with rape victims every single day. They don't turn to men to protect them. They don't.
I didn't say they turn to them. I was saying they potentially can, if you're walking home alone at night.
I don't turn to another man. I don't. I turn to other women.
Yeah, I appreciate men that, like, I love a man that knows his place. Build the house. Yeah, repair that. Because I'm a goddess. Like, if you need to hold your weight in the relationship. Like, I appreciate men. I love men. Like, you know, just like you said, you know, you have a husband, you want to cook for your husband, you make sure that he's good. Men have roles in society as well. Feminist is anything you want it to be. As a woman, I am promiscuous because I'm a feminist, but you can also be conservative because I'm a feminist. Modern day feminism is about you and what you make it, and not what someone 60 years ago said it was.
Mostly right. Yeah. We can obviously track like trends in terms of feminist rhetoric and like kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the general, like kind of to put it like the general vibes of like, you know, you've heard them say second wave and third wave feminism, which like kind of encompass like the general understanding and the general like vibes of that stripe of feminism during that era. But yeah, a lot of feminism comes down to a lot of people's like kind of personal biases and personal interpretation of it. Yeah.
But I don't praise men because they aren't rapists.
You mostly
like,
find
you know,
agreements over like overlapping.
I agree with you fully.
I disagree with the prompt because I do appreciate men. I don't think that feminists don't appreciate men. I think that's not true.
Like the person.
No. Okay. So okay. Okay, but if you're making it what you want it to be and not holding to the origin, aren't you kind of devaluing the movement? No, in the same way that like our democracy in the United States is a good example, is not the same kind of democracy that it was in 1776. We have included people into our democracy that previously were not like afforded that kind of equity, I suppose one could say, right? It is, while it's fundamentally the same democracy to a degree, there is a lot of changes that's happened. Like feminism, like any other movement, like any other movement, is always going to be evolving, always going to be changing. Everybody's always going to have their version. As like, to give you an example, as like I don't know a good example, but to give you my personal example, we'll say, as a man who identifies as a feminist, somebody who wants our society to be more equitable towards women and equalize men and women in our society, give them the choices, the same amount of choices as we possibly can, for both of them in, you know, choosing their societal role, everything else. I am not a large proponent of abortion past a certain point. I don't have like a hard number or anything, but as a child of adoption, I have a bias towards adoption. I think that we as a society should create systems and programs that incentivize adoption in the cases of unwanted pregnancy. Obviously, this is not a case where I think the government should demand or force people into carrying a pregnancy to term, because I don't think that's the role of the government to force that upon people. But I do think it would be a positive development for the government in the United States to incentivize and to support people in those situations with an alternative option that I think can also, you know, this would also allow families, allow couples who aren't able to have kids, allow them the ability to, like, you know, adopt some children. Like, there's a lot, like, adoption, I think, is a process that we need to emphasize and need to make better. But everyone knows our adoption process in the United States is shit. We all know this. We've all heard about, like, CPS and like all of the problems with our adoption system and the foster care system. Like, it's not a well-functioning, well-oiled system. So I want that system to be refined so that when women are in a position where they're pregnant by whatever means, they don't have they have more than just abortion or putting like my child into a super shady adoption process. That would also include paying for all of the healthcare, accommodating those women, taking care of them, and doing a lot of other things. I want more options for people. But like part of that feminism, like a good part of that, there are going to be women on this board, like who are on the like anti-feminist side, who would not include that in their definition of feminism. This is something like feminism at the end of the day, like any other political I don't know if I want to say ideology, but any kind of broad political movement is going to have gradations, is going to have kind of these, minor differences in between people and in between different like groups that kind of emphasize more things over others. But it like the reason why you keep the term feminism, because I saw you mention that earlier, like why call it feminism, is mainly because we all know what you're talking about from a baseline level if you say feminism. And then it's like, okay, so you're talking about the equity of men to women and kind of closing that gap. And then everything else is built upon that foundation.
Who taught me to be the feminist that I am was my father. Yeah. My father did not raise me to believe that I was less than because I was a woman. He raised me to understand that I am societally disadvantaged, but he told me that I was going to rise above that.
My household, my mom was so strong that my dad became so emasculine.
This person's like, this person is really obsessed with their mother. Just like it really makes you wonder.
Potato, right? Why she just went out there and kill it. And we are destroying family, as we know, because look at me. I'm in my 30s. I'm not settled down. I don't have children. I don't have this family unit that I want so terribly.
Cool. If you want that, then you should probably, like, I don't know, seek that out. Like, this has nothing to do with feminism. This has everything to do with, like, the way you've led your life and the way you've gone about your life. Like, I don't... Like, if your definition of being a woman or your conception of what you want for your life isn't matching up, that's on you. That has nothing to do with the anti-feminism that you hold or any of the rest of this stuff. Like, you want a family, go raise a family then. Like, I don't know what you're doing still here talking about this on this panel. Because if you don't want to participate, don't participate. It's fine. You have a right to not participate.
That I was raised with always tend to overshadow my relationship, because in my head I know best, right? Like, I know what's right. I know, because I saw it growing up. I saw it modeled to me growing up. Like, a woman knows everything. We're so powerful.
But the
We're so
idea
strong.
that men are supposed to be the head of the household, do you understand that that is killing men?
That's killing men.
It is killing men.
Well, let them die.
It's damaging.
They need to go back to working.
The pressure of it, you mean, right? The pressure
of it is destroying their mental health. That's why men are 6 times more likely to commit suicide than women are, especially men in committed relationships. Men in their 40s that are married with families are the highest risk for suicide.
But it's killing men because we have generations and generations of boys who were not raised to be men and rise to that occasion.
Could it possibly be that they were raised at a time and not acclimated to the modern conception of not just gender politics, but like relationships? Could that possibly play into it? In that we have a generation of men who never moved from their very patriarchal societal like role, and now find themselves in a world where women don't need them. Like, how many times we hear men lamenting the fact that women don't need them? And imagine how hard that is for a guy. You know, you're a dude, you know, you're like a dude, you have a good job, you have a 401k, you have a good car, I don't fucking know. And like you want to date women and they don't need you, right? Like, they're like, I got my own money, I got my own car. So like the question becomes like, shit, like, as a man, I've been conditioned, I've been programmed, I've been told that the way to have a good life is to be a provider, be a builder, go off to wars and fucking get shot or die. Like, that's what I'm supposed to do, right? That's what the system, what the patriarchy always told me. That's, you know, and now they come into a world where women don't need them the same kind of way, where they're not like, you know, they're not forced to go off to war, but that also means that they're not necessarily have to be the breadwinners, and they're just a whole bunch of confusion. They don't know what role they're supposed to play in society. And unfortunately, this kind of liberation, which, like, to me, I would look at, like, to me from the outside looking in, I'm thinking, like, that sounds like liberation. You don't have to do any of this stuff. But to a lot of guys, they're like, I don't know what the fuck I do as, like, a person in the society, which we have to figure out an answer for that. Feminism, regardless of both these people's sides, has done a poor job at figuring out and at arguing, or I guess communicating, what men's part to play is in all of this, right? Like that is the one thing that feminism as a movement in all of its history has not quite been able to figure out, I think. And we're in the process of that. I think people are trying to figure that out. But like, in no way do I think that like going back to a world or a time when men act like men, they've been trying to act like men this whole time. It's not going to fit anymore. They won't fit into this society. Women aren't going to go back to being dependent on men anymore. We have to move on. There is no putting the genie back in the box anymore. Like we're done with that. We got to move on. Men got to figure out what the fuck to do with their position in life. Like it's just the way it is.
Killing men because we are not in a position capitalistically where we can have men be the one single head of the household, the bread earner, the decision maker.
Anybody.
We are no longer in the 1950s. Our economy is not able to handle that kind of nuclear family with the man being the head of the household, the stay-at-home
and that was a
moms
decision
and
that we made.
2.5 children.
Like that's a decision that people made. Like,
and so I do have perspective. When you are in a long-term marriage or relationship with a partner of anyone,
right?
Yes, you're going to have disagreements.
Absolutely.
But you also have to understand that each person in that partnership does have roles, because that is how a healthy family functions.
Right, but your roles should be like tailored to your relationship and to your conception of a household. The fact that you're adopting roles that a damaging system that has run this hierarchy to your detriment, the fact that you've been delegating roles in that way to like through that system means that it might make your husband fucking miserable, because maybe he doesn't want to be the breadwinner. Maybe he wants to be a stay-at-home dad. Do you know how much shit stay-at-home dads get? Like, and it's shitty. It's like, why not? They're doing reproductive labor. They're contributing to society like women would if they were stay-at-home mothers. Like, somebody's got to raise the kids. Somebody's got to make sure they make it to school so that they can make it to college, so they can make it to becoming a functioning member of society and a participant in the economy. Like, all of this stuff is incredibly valuable.
Women should make laws about women's bodies.
I'm going to add a minor
What was the question?
caveat
Only women
to
should
this
make laws
and not
about women's
say that,
bodies.
Like, entirely just women should make laws about women's bodies. And I think it's more important that people who are educated on the female body are the people who are allowed to make laws about the female body. Like, we shouldn't have lawmakers making laws stating, oh, abortion is completely illegal, even if it's an ectopic pregnancy, you can reinsert that fetus. No, you're killing people if you make that kind of stupid.
It's incredibly dangerous.
It doesn't mean that any of our male lawmakers can't be involved.
And frankly, I think they need to be a little bit more involved. Some of them are slacking.
Yes.
They are letting me down.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
you know, I think they're
Capitalism will chase whatever makes it the most amount of money. In this you are correct. Absolutely. Corporations, like capitalism as a system, is built uniquely to take advantage of these kinds of moments to make money. Not to actually push a discourse forward, not to make life better for anybody, just simply to sell products. That's why I have a problem with it. It's not based around making life better for people. It's just based around wealth accumulation.
There are a lot of men who hold a lot of power, who are on our side, who are not doing enough.
This I think is true. This is I think a bit true. Yeah.
It's funny because I think you all spoke for us, because I think you all agreed that everyone should be involved in making these laws. We need.
So you say this, but we'll be the same person. Well, the problem with running for political office is that it's not just incredibly expensive. It's also incredibly I don't want to say competitive because competitive isn't the word. It's really more like, you know, if you're going to run for an office, right? If you're going to run for local dog catcher and there's some corpo who wants their guy to be local dog catcher, they will drop, you know, $20,000-$50,000 to make sure that they're the only viable candidate and win that race. Our elections in the United States are rather broken because of the way that we fund them, but that's a conversation for a different time.
You see how simple that was?
And men can be women these days.
Men can't be women if they actively identify as men. That's not a thing.
I currently identify as a man.
Okay, then you're a man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you agree that these laws that are specific about our bodies, shouldn't the originators of that bill talking about our bodies be women?
Answer that, can y'all?
No. I don't think we should think about men versus women. I think we should have intelligent.
It's not about men versus women. Of course, men are going to be involved with creating laws and putting laws into place. But when we're talking about the language, when we're talking about verbiage for these laws, shouldn't a woman be, multiple women preferably, be
involved?
Yeah, be at the forefront of what these laws look like for us.
I think it's less about a man versus a woman and more about the way society is now versus 50 years ago. People that you didn't even vote for, that are spending lifelong terms in Congress and such. You know, that's in the Supreme Court. That's more of an issue to me than worrying about if a man or a woman wrote this law or bill.
There's checks and balances to our government, but I wanted to ask you.
Checks and balances.
Yeah,
there totally are.
100% pro-life.
Totally.
Oh, you're a woman now?
I identify
She's
right
gender
now.
fluid.
I'm switching back.
Okay.
No, very fluid by the hour.
But, hey, gender fluid, that's a thing.
Would you be okay with, so I'm a woman now, for now, and I am very pro-life. You're okay with women like me making these laws? Because you disagree with the outcome there. I'm assuming you're pro-choice, right?
But the law is, if we're talking about Roe v. Wade, right?
Yeah.
The law is about, it's not about your ideal of pro-life. It's about abortion. It's about bodily autonomy. If you don't want to get an abortion, fine. That's what it's all about. It's your choice.
I want to sort of reverse it and ask you the question.
I love when people try to do like I'm pro-life, and it's like, okay, that's really nice. I also like Reese's over Hershey's. I don't give a shit. That has nothing to do with abortion. Like, it just doesn't. Like, you can be pro-life. That's totally fine. If you're like, hey, I don't really believe in abortion, I'm like, totally fine. Don't get it then. But we can't have this universe where, like, because of your arbitrary beliefs and where you've drawn the line, affects other people's lives and their ability to actually live fulfilling lives and everything else. You just can't have it.
There be laws about women's bodies.
You have a right to not get abortion. You don't have a right to tell somebody else they can't.
Because there certainly are.
Right, but we live in a system of government where there are states' rights, and I live in California, and guess what? I don't agree with anything our governor is doing. I don't agree with the majority that is in our state legislature.
Then fucking move to Alabama.
I choose to live here, and if I have a problem with the laws, then I have the opportunity to move to a different state.
So just all the people who don't have the opportunity to move to a different state.
Everyone has opportunity to work, to make a life for themselves here in America. What I love about America is that this is the only place on earth that you can work and achieve based on your merit.
I was raised by a single mom.
No, I didn't. You're allowed to have the opinion of pro-life. I don't really care. The political movement of pro-life is anti-choice because it is like the argument of like, I'm not in favor of abortion, therefore we shouldn't allow it, is not affording people the freedom to come to the conclusion that they can be. There is no room in the pro-life movement to be pro-abortion, right? But there is absolutely room in the pro-choice movement to be anti-abortion. You see what I mean? Like, the pro-choice movement is you pick it's your life, you do what the fuck you want. The pro-life movement, unfortunately, is all about, no, this is the answer you're giving no matter what. There's obviously gradation. Some people, draw the line of like, okay, if the woman's health is in danger, then sure, I guess we'll allow it, and all the rest of these things. But the pro-life movement is a unmoving, unflinching stance. The pro-choice movement is the only one that allows people to actually make the decision between being pro-abortion, anti-abortion. That's my problem with pro-life.
Who, didn't have the support she needed to really mother me. So by the time I was 15, I moved out of her home. And I lived with a boyfriend at the time. I fought my school board for better sex education. I fought my senator when he voted to repeal funding for Title X and birth control access to funding I relied on. And I told him, why would you deny me the American dream? And I shared with him that birth control was helping me to be successful, to go on to higher education. And now I'm on a full ride at Columbia University. I'm the first in my family to go to college. And in large part, that is because of access to birth control.
You guys mentioned that, not everyone has a bootstrap. And this is why feminism is such a weird topic to have in this particular country, because I'm from a developing country, I'm from Nigeria. Although my parents were quite successful, thankfully, but I grew up around poverty. I saw it every single day. And so to come to this country.
Oh, we're finishing. This is getting turned into a segment on YouTube, which you should go subscribe to. Well, you have a nice night, Coomer Police.
Like, I was raised by a single mother, or most people don't have bootstraps. You're in America. That's like, this is the place to do it. This is the place to do it. Find that boots, honey, and put it on.
No one's saying that there aren't challenges. We're saying that this is the best place to do it. Have that challenge.
And I quickly want the challenges are not distributed equally.
Nobody said that.
Let me just.
Somebody did.
To say that only women should make decisions about women's bodies is completely unrealistic.
I have to believe that there is a future where that is possible.
Well, of course there's a future. More women than ever are serving in our government. Of course there's a future. So of course women always have a seat at the table.
You're at Columbia. Look at you. You moved out at 15, you're at Columbia.
Yeah, but when I graduated from UC Berkeley and I was in my lecture halls, there were 2 other black people, and it's 400 people in here. Like, that makes me uncomfortable.
It's not that we look at everything through an oppressive lens. It's that many of us hold different identities that allow society to continue to oppress us. A friend of mine had to travel across state for an abortion. She had the ability to select between paying for her disability, the things that she needs for her disability, or traveling for an abortion. Like, you guys don't have to think about that.
But that
she has
her
decision to have sex.
Get pregnant.
No,
Unless it wasn't,
she
then
was
I'm
being
agree.
raped.
No, then I agree with you.
Raped.
Then I agree with you.
Okay,
It's all done.
But I shouldn't have to tell you that story for you to understand that there are certain things that you have not experienced that oppress other people. Oh, okay, you're just traumatized enough for me to understand that maybe things are hard.
Feminism that doesn't include trans women isn't feminism.
That doesn't include. Oh. Yeah, I could have expected that. Oh, whoa, wait. Feminism that doesn't include trans. Oh. Interesting. Okay.
You surprised to see me here?
No.
Okay, good.
It's really important to include
I'll be surprised all 4 of them.
And trans people and gender nonconforming people, which, by the way, I am gender queer myself. I don't actually identify as a woman. It's really important that those of us who do have privileges speak up for trans women in the community, especially because they're the most at risk for hate crimes.
Weird.
I also want to just level set and say that we are having this conversation without trans women. Right? We are sitting here today having
a
conversation without
for sure?
trans women.
I identify as trans.
She identifies as non-binary, and she's on a feminist panel.
Oh my God, can you calm the fuck down? Jesus Christ. This is the type of person who's like, I cannot unflinchingly move from my version of feminism, which is only based on my uterus and my vagina. That's all it is. That's all it can be.
So maybe she doesn't belong here either.
Take it easy.
They don't belong here.
Plot twist, I am biologically female and I'll never deny that. I lived as a woman for most of my life. I am 31. I only came out.
Really? I honestly would have guessed somewhere in 20s. Good for them.
A couple of years ago. I spent a lot of time, the majority of my life in
Maybe
these
the hair
spaces
makes them look younger.
With women. That does give me a kind of unique perspective now being a trans non-binary person.
There's an issue with categorizing womanhood as a means of female Earlier, it was mentioned by somebody on the anti-trans side about trans women coming in and taking over sports and things like that, which is just not true.
That is true.
It's not.
It is.
It's
I can show you a number of cases.
I can show you
there
a
might be
number
people
of
that also haven't.
No, I can show you a number.
Trans women retain 30% of their biological advantage.
That is not
if they went through male puberty. Yes, it is.
That is
yes.
If they went through male puberty, let's remember that. This is why you have puberty blockers. Like, it's really funny because, like, women like this lady would probably not be in favor of giving kids or adolescents who might be trans puberty blockers, even though puberty blockers is why, like, you would use them to avoid them developing as the gender they don't want to develop under. Like, yeah, no shit.
It is.
That is not.
Let's not argue it. That's not even the prompts. I'm not going to argue about that.
Because you're wrong.
If you are a trans
Love
woman,
that.
and you
Let's
walk
stop
out in the
talking
world
about
and
it
you are
after
seen as
I
a
won't
man,
let
you
you.
do not belong in women's spaces. I don't care what anybody says. I think that's ridiculous, and I think even trans women that have gender dysphoria that go through transition will agree with me.
This makes me so incredibly uncomfortable that we're even having this conversation.
You could go back over there if you really wanted to.
Ooh. If we took all of that off the table,
Wow,
right? If
what
we're
an
not
incredible
talking about
bitch.
who can play sports with whom,
I'll say it.
Can people exist as who they are?
Absolutely.
It sounded like you were saying if a trans woman doesn't look like what you perceive as looking like a woman, they shouldn't be in feminist spaces.
I didn't say that. I said they shouldn't be in female spaces.
Okay.
Not feminist spaces.
Okay.
I think women...
I disagree with that, but
that's
okay.
fine. It makes sense to biologically classify people. It also makes sense to socially classify people. Let's say my friend Blair White was sitting right here. It's my buddy. I love her.
Oh, she's a Blair White person. No wonder she got on this show.
She's sitting right here. Do I think she
Is
lives
Blair
her life
White
as
a man?
No. Like, we were talking about men making decisions for women as far as abortions are concerned. That's something she'll never experience.
Sure.
There are women who biologically cannot produce. There are females, people assigned female at birth, who biologically cannot produce. Are you saying that those female women should not be able to
What's the threshold?
say in those laws
That's
either?
not what I'm saying at all. I guess my
Then what's the threshold? See, this is the annoying shit. Is it's always like, okay, it's this thing, and it's like, well, actual, like, the biological women that you're using to defend this point also don't do that thing. Are they also not women? It's like, well, it's not that one. It's like, okay, so which one is it? Like, what is it that makes you a woman? Like, what's the you must have this one thing. What is it? Is it long hair? Because I'll tell you right now, women who have really short hair, you know what they get called? Fucking dykes. You know what they get called? Fucking not real women, because they don't have long hair. Like it's a thing. Like what the fuck is this? Like, women does not just encompass, like, human being who has a vagina, who can have kids, who has long hair, who has titties. Like, what size titties? Are real women only women with big titties? Are real women only women with little titties? Like, which one is it? Where's the fucking line? And it's always these people want to move it all over the fucking place just to kind of come up with some bullshit definition of women that doesn't include trans women, even though there are trans women with huge titties, long hair, big boobs, a vagina. Maybe not a uterus, but all right, whatever. Oh, so a uterus is a if you don't have that one thing, you're not a woman. Oh, guess what? There are biological women who also do not have uteruses because of complications or whatever it might be. So are they not women now? Oh, well, I guess it doesn't really count in that way. So it's like, the fuck are we talking about then? You can't give me a definition that excludes trans women. Like, so what's even the point of this? At the end of the day, if you want to talk about biological females, just say biological females. Like, ugh, fuck's sake.
main issue with trans women being seen as women and not being seen as trans women is they're changing the definition of women and expecting everybody to go along with that. And that affects me, yes, they are. And that affects me directly. You say trans women are women are trans women. It's a very different experience.
Trans women are women.
We're just gonna agree to disagree with that. If you ask feminists at a women's march what a woman is, they can't even define it. How can you protect something and empower?
Oh my God, everyone gives, oh my God. I love this. Oh God. Like, this person just does, like, they don't give me an answer. I'm like, what did we do at the top of this? What did we do at the top of this? A woman is a person who identifies as a woman. which would be somebody who identifies under the social structure, under the social banner of what would classify a woman in our society, meaning somebody who wears heels, somebody who wears dresses, all of these social elements. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's not that hard. Like, holy shit.
Or something that you don't even know the actual definition of.
Like, you can't give me a definition of woman without mentioning things that other women do not have.
Pro-trans, which is
some people are like, oh, woman, it can be a mother. Oh, what about women that can't be mothers? Now they're not women. Okay, cool. And it's like, well, no, that's not quite the same thing. It's like, oh, no, okay. Like, oh.
Overtaking, reversing some of the work.
It's the same dumb shit all the fucking time.
Billionaire.
Well, they criticize her.
Fine.
She's fine. Oh, her billionaire feelings are hurt. I'm so saddened for her.
Feminist movement does not allow anyone to have any other opinions but what you guys
but what
think
does
is
that
correct.
Mean, though? Because she's allowed to have that opinion, and she still makes a bunch of money.
Yes, she does.
What do trans women take away from women in the feminist movement?
The definition of words and what that means and how that affects us directly. Can
you expand on that?
Yes, when you change the word woman, legally it has implications. Okay. Sexually it has implications.
But the word woman has changed throughout histories, throughout different cultures. Indigenous people have had different genders, different ways of looking at gender.
Like, at the end of the day, what a woman was 100 years ago is wildly different to what a woman is right now. Like, you can't make the argument that you can't change it. It's like, guess what, dumbass? It was changed when second wave feminists came apart. It changed. It changes. It's always changing. I know it's really hard. But, like, this is how life as a human being works. We're always changing. We're always evolving. Time is always moving forward. You can fight the tide, but I'm sorry, the water's gonna take your ass over the fucking waterfall. Like, you either embrace that or you fight it, which is fine. Do what you want to do. But you're gonna like you're just wrong. I'm sorry. You're just wrong. Like, fuck out of here.
The Torah specifically has 8 different genders, and we have recognized that for
God
over 3,000
damn, I did not know
years.
that.
You're denying anybody's culture that does not agree with your perception and your worldview because you hold so highly onto your identity and you see it as an attack on who you are.
Yo, fucking based. Holy shit. Dude, that was fucking... Hat's fucking off. I'm not gonna take mine off though, but still, Jesus.
Sexual orientation.
Feminist as a whole.
But it's nothing to do with sexual.
It has exactly to do with sex. When you change the word woman and a lesbian is a woman that is attracted to women, how is that not directly affecting us?
What defines a woman
is
being
born
with biological women's parts.
Okay.
And that is what a woman is. And
so I'm going to assume she means functioning, which means if you were born without those things, you're not a woman, right? If you're born with a non-functioning uterus or something, then you're out. Then you're not a woman. Deal with it. Like.
And trans women are individuals who choose to live their lives as
also
women.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter if you rolled the biological dice and you got it, or you got a surgery that does the exact same thing? I think something that people are like really struggling with these days is the concept that humans are not these unchanging or unchangeable things. Like, understand, like, we as humans might as well be fucking clay people. We can be molded, we can be shaped, we can be changed. There is so much about us, how we present especially, that can absolutely change. Like, so the idea of like, oh, well, you need to have this and this bit at birth. It's like, all right, what if I have all but one of those, but like a year later? Does it matter? What if it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Does it matter? Like, if you have the functional bits and you perform the functional societal roles, then does it matter? Like, is it a deal? Is it a big deal? Not really. Like, you're just playing semantic games.
Everyone deserves dignity and respect, and I mean that. But at the same time, there are universal truths. And we have, as a society, gotten to this confusing tangled place where there's your truth, your truth, your truth, your truth. There is one objective truth.
This lady reads like way too many bumper stickers.
Who are born female, who are assigned female at birth, and then during puberty grow penises?
I've never, I can't explain it because I don't know anything about that.
That sounds like an intersex condition.
You try to,
Geez, it's almost like there's something other than like the very Western, very traditional understanding of biology and social structures.
Tell us how we should live our life. I said I was a raging feminist. She goes, I don't believe that.
I don't see that. I don't in what you've been saying. I can't see any traces of feminism in what you're saying.
My mother is literally.
We heard a lot about your mom, but what about you?
I am a woman. Looking at me, I am a woman.
She said, I heard about your mom, I heard about you.
Why are we trying to write
here.
women, born biological women? Why are you trying to write us out of history?
You guys keep saying that there's a biological reaction.
Why does it also, like, so what? The only thing that actually, the only part of you that matters in terms of your womanhood is your reproductive organs? Do you know who also makes that argument? Misogynists. Misogynists do not believe that women hold a role in society outside of child rearing and childbirth. So what? That's all you are? If that's what these women would like to to boil their identity, their personhood down to, they have a right to. But not only is it stupid, it's reductive and it's not helpful, and it serves the least amount of people.
Of male and female, scientists do not agree with you.
I should say, sorry, not the least amount, less people than it could.
Scientists back up anything you want to
clarify.
I choose to do peer-reviewed studies and not ones that are backed by political agenda.
Damn.
And I'm sorry that my peer-reviewed studies tend to agree with the fact that trans women are women and that biology, it does not exist in a binary. Never has and it never will.
I secretly crave men's approval.
Yeah. Men's approval has kept me safe in so many ways.
Girl, I approve of those boots. Those are some fucking killer boots. Like, fucking roundhouse kick somebody with those.
It's being desirable, being fuckable has kept me safe.
Damn, she went there.
And it's no secret. I guess that's where I disagree. It's no secret that sometimes men's approval is what stands between me and safety.
I firmly believe that the reason why I waited so long to come out with my transness is because I was afraid of losing male approval. It is so embedded into our society. I really pushed myself to present in a way that wasn't authentic to me for men.
Yeah.
I'm trying to unlearn this like very actively and trying to fight for nobody's approval but myself. Like, because it's not even that I should have men's approval.
Do that. Everybody should be doing that.
I should need my own approval.
Yeah, and I mean, this prompt I think might be surprising for some folks to see us sitting here.
Yeah, because we're like so feminist,
sure.
but like,
but it's a reminder that this work doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that because I am implicated in what is happening, right, in the issues, I am implicated in the issues, that's why I do the work. Yeah. Because I am impacted by them.
I've never thought of a moment where I thought to myself, oh, I wish that man would find me sexy.
Isn't this the same person who wants men to like be more strong, be more like traditional men? Am I crazy? Is that not this lady who just did? Okay.
Because I feel so empowered in myself. I always dress like this from head to toe, covered usually from head to toe. And
that's nice. That sounds fun. If you choose that for yourself, I support you.
And, you know, I think that's also why, you know, with my platform now that I switched from a raging feminist to a femininity, which I was, and you can't tell me what I was and who I was. I had the shaved head, the armpit hair, all of it.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. And when I went from that to that, now I teach women
you
how
should
to, like,
be able to do
dress
that.
modern and
Crazy
cover
thought.
up and be feminine and soft and all of that.
Who are you dressing modern and modest for?
For myself, because it empowers me. I am Nigerian first and foremost, and because of that, in our culture, we've always been very modest. We didn't even have a word for it. It's just that's how women.
I wonder if it's also a patriarchal culture which keeps men at the top of its hierarchy. Which, if that's the thing you choose for yourself, go for it. But that's again one of those things where you gotta observe societies and how they're built, how they're structured is very important.
Layer on top of layers on top of layers. And I remember when I first, became a feminist and like moved and I would show skin, I always felt so uncomfortable.
Why did you feel uncomfortable with showing your skin? I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just asking out of curiosity why you felt uncomfortable, like what the root of that discomfort was.
Because it's not who I am.
But I also think we'd be denying reality if we said when we put clothes on the morning, we didn't think about the way that we would navigate the world in them, right? The way that people would perceive us and think about us. And it's definitely worth noting that clothing choices are also about access to power, access to moving through spaces, being seen as acceptable in certain spaces, right?
Like covering up, not necessarily because you feel like that empowers you, but covering up because it's a sense of safety. Like so many, one of the things that we have to, with my job, we have to correct officers on, like when an assault victim comes forward, like they're not allowed to ask, what were you wearing? Like, but
it's fucking cringe.
It's very bad. It's very, it's very dehumanizing because it implies that
it was their fault.
That it was their fault.
I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I just don't really care about men. Like, men are not a part of my day. When I wake up in the morning, I think about how to be the baddest bitch, how to step into myself.
This is cope. This is cope.
That's looking like
who are you the baddest bitch for? Come on. Don't give me this.
We're showing a little cleavage. Like it's gonna be what it is, and
but go forward.
Men are gonna like the men I attract. They like me because I am like no one else they've met. Like they've never really experienced this new person. It's like you don't know
found
what
frequently
their
in the wild
is. Like especially when it comes to things like race and preference, and like nothing that I do is gonna really be approved by men ever. So I might as well just do me.
But I do just want to say that men's approval, once again, it's not just about if they want to date you or marry you or have sex with you. It is about if they want to hire you, if they want you to be a part of their organization or their school. And so when we talk about wanting men's approval, we're talking about if they want to hire me, if they want to let me have access to that social mobility, and if they will allow me to be safe walking down the street or in a bar. Men's approval is so much deeper and more systemic than just romantic.
Are we allowed to? I have to agree with that, even though we're on the opposite end of this, because I'm a blogger and I write about women's makeup and for example.
It's got to be nice that through feminism that you've been given a platform and the ability to just write your opinions without and be published instead of being put upon by the local governments. See, that's nice. That's a nice benefit of feminism.
For example, Dove is one of the brands that I am the face of, and when I go into those meetings, they are white men, and although I do not go into it thinking, oh my God,
it's almost like the system was
I do know that the way I
favor
dress
those groups
conservatively gets me those checks.
And probably as a Black woman, how you wear your hair as well.
Oh yeah, they love this hair. Oh, they love it. They love it. They love it.
I was trying to push you before.
That's
No,
creepy.
I do that. But that's also how I was raised, and it's cultural. Nigerian women are very conservative by nature.
It's rational for women to fear men.
Yeah. Statistics say, you're at a much higher risk of assault and everything else. Yeah. Doesn't mean you should, I think, move around the world with that in an outsized manner, but it is something that a lot of women have to live with.
Working with
it's not great.
sexual assault and domestic
it's not
violence
good,
victims
but
every single day.
It's the world we live in.
It has completely just reopened my mind and my trauma, because I am a sexual assault survivor myself, which is why I got into the work that I do. It's every single woman, almost every single woman has some sort of story where she was in a room or in a space with a man and that man made her feel unsafe. And if every single woman has a story like that, it's rational.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why, again, I know I'm bringing this back to the trans issue, but that's why I think it's important to define what a woman or man or male or female is. Like, if it's just something in your head, then why do we logically have to be afraid of that specific thing if it's just something, a gender in your head?
So
there are biological differences that can make us fearful or make men react certain ways that are different than women.
Yes and no, but
yes, but if you had any kind of understanding of like science at all, you would know that the underpinning of those reactions, the way that men and women react to any event, is usually is generally comes down to two things: how you've been socially conditioned, and the hormones that that you developed with, right? Those are going to be the two biggest factors if we want to boil it all the way down to like a mathematical, scientific rationale for why you reacted to this or that event, right? It's going to either be the way that you were raised or the way that you were conditioned socially, or it's going to be the way that your hormones influence the development of your brain, meaning the development of how the chemicals in your brain end up kind of sloshing around in the soda that it ends up making, right? Trans women have the lucky ability where they have rejected their social conditioning in terms of their gender role and their gender, their place as a gendered human being in society. So that's the first one. So you're not going to be worrying about trans women assaulting you because they haven't been socially acclimated to towards those kinds of actions, right? The second one is hormones. Again, this is the scientific, biological, chemical part of this. Trans women go through a bevy of hormonal changes through their transition, meaning your body ends up changing in a lot of ways, which does change your does change the physical parts of you in terms of if you're a trans woman, maybe before you began the process, maybe you didn't have big old titties, but now that you are 5, 6, 7, 10 years into being a trans woman, you got big old honkers, right? Because that's what the hormones are going to do. They're going to drive your development in that direction. What it's also going to do is the same thing for your brain. You're also a lot of trans women also tend to express how much more I think they cry. And I think a part of that is also a bit of that social conditioning and I guess maybe mentally buying into your new gender. But being more emotional, I think having those kind of my mom growing up would talk about the hot flashes she gets and kind of that wave of all sorts of chemicals and everything else that goes through that men, I've never talked to a man tell me about hot flashes or any of that sort of stuff, but trans women certainly have experienced that since transitioning. So what she's talking about just doesn't. She's worried because she still sees them as men and she's scared of men, which I get. I get the impetus of that. I get the base level fear, but you're mistaking that for a completely different group. You've shielded yourself way too much, I think.
But there's absolutely a different perception of a trans woman than a man. In my experience, when women are in the same room as trans women, they're not as fearful of oh my God, this person could assault me, because the likelihood of trans people assaulting women is
incredibly low.
So small. It's practically
and there's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that.
I agree with that. Actual trans women. My point.
Trans women, period. Not actual or inactual.
No, there is a thing. People that are claiming the trans identity but are not trans.
That's against the prompt.
That's true.
Men are not only scary.
Okay, so I know what she's talking about. She's talking about when just guys pretend to be trans women and enter into women's spaces and assault them. And guess what? that's not a problem. That's not trans women or the trans communities. That has nothing to do with them. They would just like to use the bathroom that they most identify with, which, you know, if you're a trans woman and you've ever gone into a men's restroom, you are at a significantly higher rate of assault and sexual or otherwise. So when we're talking about like who it's safer for, women are not put in more danger when trans women are allowed in their spaces, but trans women are put into more danger when they're allowed, or at least when they're forced into men's spaces. There's only like, you know, obviously like, you know, cis men or whatever who like enter into women's spaces when they're not supposed to. Guess what? They're going to do that no matter what. They were going to do that to start with. The trans part of this has nothing to do with their calculus to if they wanted to assault you. So, you know, I don't know what, like, I get where she's coming from, but it's a concern that like when you really like break down the arithmetic, there's really only two options. Like men entering into women's restrooms and assaulting them has happened for what, since we've always had restrooms, because there are men who are always been predatory. That you're not going to change. But trans women, on the other hand, have shown no propensity to that and just want to use the restroom and not be assaulted. So there's also that.
Because of their biological difference, they're stronger, whatever, right? Some of the violence is that men can be abusive, harmful, and get away with it.
It's the systemic power.
It's the systemic power that is scary.
The reason that 90% of sexual assault cases go unreported is because of like roughly the 8% that are reported. Only 2% of them actually face consequences.
And we seem to
I think we all
agree.
agree.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees.
Right. Some of my deepest, I honestly would say probably my deepest trauma is actually not my physical sexual assault. It was the manipulation that I faced
After.
in the workplace by someone who was not necessarily physical with me, but they manipulated me. They used their power to paint me in a light and push me out of that job that I loved.
I'm so sorry you experienced that.
I agree, like the stats will say a trans woman, which I would say is a man, a trans woman, it is less likely, like very unlikely to attack. But it's not even, it's really kind of the principle. It's like, but if they were to, they would beat me up.
But then I'm gonna take.
So you have no evidence for this stance. It's all feelings. That's all it is. Okay.
That one step further, which is that if they were to, and then the police were to come, what would their experience be like versus yours as a white woman?
I'm not talking about the cops. It's just me and
But
the
the
trans
cops are
woman.
a factor.
I actually hate the cops. Just saying.
Oh, totally. Sure,
see
totally.
A male person and you see a trans woman, like, what does that have equal amounts of fear for you, or is there a difference?
So my thing, I'm trying to focus in on a trans woman wants to beat me up.
Why are trans women wanting to beat you up?
No, that's not good. I'm saying hypothetical. It's a hypothetical. I'm just saying.
This is so fucking weird. This is such a weird, like, hang up for this person. Like, I don't, like,
can we all agree that I would get my ass beat?
But
girl, you get your ass beat by anybody.
Yes.
Like, girl, you get your ass beat by a trans woman. You get your ass beat by a trans man. You get your ass beat by anybody, in my opinion. Dude, like, as much as I like your nice sweater, you gonna get your ass beat. Like, I'm sorry. I'm putting money on almost everybody else in this fight. You're like last on the list. Homegirl, who I don't like, I think would be pretty scrappy. But like, no, come on now.
Maybe, but then, how would the experience be outside of just that hypothetical vacuum? No, I want to finish my thought, because
that's not the prompt, though.
No, but it is the prompt, because we're talking about, we can't talk about this in a hypothetical vacuum.
What's the prompt?
The prompt was that it's rational for women to fear men, but you're bringing in trans women when the discussion is men.
It's not about physicality.
Because she believes that trans women are men.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's what you are saying.
And that's what I'm saying, is that that situation is so unlikely, and it is unlikely because of the difference in societal power that you hold over a trans woman.
That's not exactly
For
true.
people who love to
I understand what you're saying.
love to criticize other people for assuming genders incorrectly.
I mean, it's very simple. Do you think the cops look at a trans woman and think, oh, I'm going to give them the most charitable, I'm going to look upon this situation most charitably towards them or towards a guy? See, they understand this. All of these women, and she mentioned it earlier, and like, it's why she agrees with this. She knows that if a woman and a man go to a police officer, the officer is, at the very least, in terms of statistics and in terms of like data that we have, the officer is more likely going to take the man's report of something more seriously than the women's. Women are thought to be flighty. They're thought to be what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Like over accusatory. Like, they understand that relationship that men have with police, right? And the kind of seriousness that their reports are taken over women. It's the same reason why there's like a bazillion rape kits that have never been even tested, because cops don't take women seriously enough to do them. Now, what do you think that is with trans women? Do you think trans women get more charitability over men, more charitability over women versus men? No, they get less than both of those groups. A trans woman coming to you know, a biological woman going to the police crying about this or that, crying about some trans woman going to the bathroom in there and being like, oh my God, they assaulted me, and all the rest of this stuff, will absolutely be taken more seriously and absolutely will be jumped upon by the police more than that trans woman just going about their business trying to defend themselves, just be like, I just went to the bathroom. Like, the amount of charity given to these groups, there is a difference. And like, this lady understands it. She knows the cops like guys more than they do girls, but they like girls a lot more than they like trans women as well. So keep that in mind.
Love assuming how things are going to happen and like predict the future and how situations play out and how I'm treated by everyone else.
Well, you're hypothetical. That's a hypothetical.
Wait, but that's what you're doing. You're like assuming you're going to get assaulted.
You're assuming they would beat you up.
A man would beat me up. Yes.
A man?
Yes.
You're assuming a trans woman would beat you up.
We'll be specific. A male.
Male. Yes.
Okay.
Better. That's all I'm saying. You want to avoid answering that part and go into this bigger, broad thing to avoid. If there's a biological man and a trans woman,
I disagree with you on the definition here.
Biological male.
But I'm a biological man.
We'll say male or female and gender man or woman.
I'm a biological woman who is roughly of like not too big of difference of size. I could easily beat you up. So why are you?
She's like, I could kick your ass. Like, what's the point? What's your point here? I can whoop. I don't need a man. I'll whoop your ass. I'm a feminist.
Them than me when I present just as equal of a difference to you. It's because of your.
No, you.
Also, this person is clearly never like. Last time I checked, trans women are not again estrogen, my friend.
Not men necessarily. Males create. Would you say 90% of? Would you say males create 90% of the crimes?
I didn't say that.
There was something like that.
I said I was talking about reports of sexual assault, and that does actually include male assault victims. And most of them are males. And most of the male assault victims, their assaulters were also men.
That's my point. Right.
Hi. Okay, so
it's rational for women. Oh, here we go.
The conversation that I just listened to, I don't disagree with much of what we were talking about. When this prompt was asked, I interpreted the prompt to say, to communicate, it is rational for women to fear all men. I know that the word all was not in there, but that's how I sort of understood it, which I don't think it's rational for women to fear all men. I think that's very tragic.
I guess that's fair.
We know that there are bad men, we know that there are very, very good men. And I personally
should fear
think
all
that
people,
the amount of
but not
good
fear
men,
all people.
Exceedingly overwhelms the amount of bad men, but that's just my personal opinion. I also, quite frankly, fear women. I do. I fear how manipulative women can be to each other in the workplace. I fear how manipulative women can be to each other and how toxic women can be to each other when it comes to polarizing topics like we've discussed here, motherhood, other very incendiary topics.
We're talking about physical abuse with men, and actually with emotional abuse, it's most common in lesbian couples.
Really?
So, yeah, that is actually.
You would know.
No,
you deal with it. It's horrendous.
Actually a statistic.
Horrendous.
Women are equally as likely to commit domestic violence. I genuinely, when I got into this work, I thought that it was going to be like, oh, just men commit domestic violence. No, women are really equally as likely to commit domestic violence.
But why were you surprised by that?
Because I had a different definition in my head of what domestic violence was before I got my training. Domestic violence is not just like punching, hitting, or physical violence. Oftentimes it's emotional violence, psychological violence, sexual violence, financial violence, legal violence, and women are far more likely to commit psychological domestic violence or emotional domestic violence.
Oh, why were you
fucking psychic attacks?
Definition, the more violent definition of domestic violence. Physical violence. Why were you surprised that women, like?
I wasn't surprised that women
you
commit
assumed that
physical.
men would.
No, I wasn't surprised
more,
that women commit physical violence, physical domestic violence. I assumed that I assumed that there was one definition of domestic violence, and that was physical. And
it's almost like when you learn things, you grow more insight, and you learn how to define things in a much more broad and specific way.
Statistics do show that men do commit physical domestic violence more than women do. That's just a fact. But like when you add in all other kinds of domestic violence, women commit it at equal rates.
Yeah, that's a wrap on the group discussion. Take a breath for a second.
Jesus Christ. Well, that was a thing. Now, wasn't it? You know the thing that they tell, like at the end of all YouTube videos where they tell you to like click on one of these like things to watch more videos. Yeah, I've been meaning to film one of those. So that's what I was doing. I was just setting it up to film one.